Welcome to Coconut Chats, everyone. Today you've got me, Harita, and I'm joined with my co-host, Chris. How are you going, Chris?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Today we've got a special guest who you might have seen on the TV show Bombay Begums recently on Netflix. But she is an Indian-born film and stage actress based in Mumbai, India, and she works in both India and Europe. She was selected in the year 2015 as the first female actress from India to be part of the Berlinale Talent Lab since its inception. So you might have guessed who she is, or maybe not yet. She was born in the rural heartland of India, in Uttar Pradesh, in a conservative family, and as a young child, she was sent by her mother to the world-renowned fine art institution of Kalakshetra Foundation, a part of the Krishnamurti Theosophical Society to study the Indian classical dance. Having been on stage from a young age and molded by the Krishnamurti ideology, her artistic journey began quite early in life and leading her way to Mumbai to pursue acting and now into international arenas. So Sanghmitra Hitaishi was recently in Bombay Begums, as well as a wide variety of other TV shows and media around the world. Welcome, Sanghmitra. How are you?
Thank you for having me, and I'm good. And it's so nice to finally do this after months of, talking about this, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to talk to you, especially given that you're in a completely different time zone to us, and obviously things like this take a bit of scheduling.
Yes.
Um, so I guess first things first, because this is how I came across you, even though you've been acting since well before this. But in Bombay Begums, you portray a lesbian character. What made you choose that specific character?
Um, I think it's important. Representation is important, and I have always wanted to be as an actor, portraying characters that don't have voices otherwise. And also, a few years before that, I don't know exactly how many years ago, India had decriminalized homosexuality. And that was a big step, considering how conservative our, culture is. And even though it was decriminalized, there's still taboo around it. So it was important that we start showing characters that in movies, in storytelling, and storytelling is a strong form through which a lot of people accept, non-conformist ideas or alternative thought processes, and that's why it was important for me to do this character. And also because when Alankrita, who offered me this part, had made Lipstick Under My Burqa, her film before. I don't know if you've heard of it. It
Yeah,
was
I
quite
have.
popular. And I really liked that film. And meeting her was just one of the most incredible experiences. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Maybe. No, okay. So I think it was the character, the fact that she was a singer, and the fact that Alankrita was the creator of the show, and I just felt like it was I was in safe hands
Hmm.
to portray that character.
So how do you think Bombay Begums was received by the Indian audience? I know globally it was received quite well, but sometimes India can be a bit of a different story.
I mean, for the most part, I think it was received really well because I think it raised a lot of new conversations around
Mm,
female sexuality, homosexuality, the female gaze from a cinematic perspective. There was a lot. It was like the number one show for a few months on Netflix in India, and um, I think women really liked it. I remember watching this interview of a group of women in Pakistan talking about how enamored they were by the show and how it talked about female sexuality. And I think it just, I think females felt represented, and if you see, all the characters in the show are women who are not perfect, who are imperfect, but that's all right. They're human, and it brings out a sense of sisterhood, which is what I think was is needed in primarily in Indian storytelling, which is, whenever a female-oriented subject is taken upon, it's mostly made by men from their perspective, and it's women who are imperfect then become perfect, and they glorify, and they sacrifice or compromise for the man, for the house, for the family, and it's this glorification. Either she is, I think in Indian storytelling, either she's a goddess, a mother, or a slut. It's she can't just be a human being who has a job and probably is going through a breakup and is horny at times, I don't know, and wants to explore her sexuality, and she can still be a nice, decent human being. So I think that Alankrita really did a really good job with like capturing these flawed women, but they were decent and they were good, and they rose up to the occasion for the other when it was needed.
I remember.
I think it was received well.
Yeah, well, I remember the actress, I can't remember her name, but the actress that played your love interest in Bombay Begums, she was basically
Plabita Borthakur.
Yeah, and she was basically the type of character that you just explained, going through a breakup, single. And I remember in Bombay Begums, like, no one would give her an apartment because she was a single female. And like in the show, people kept asking, where's your partner? Where's your boyfriend? Like, as if a woman by herself cannot rent an apartment because God knows why.
That's the reality. I mean, I live in Bombay, and now I own my own place. But when I was renting, it was so difficult because I was a single girl, I was unmarried, and I worked in films. I was an actress. So that's like, I didn't check any of the boxes to be secure enough for a landlord to give me his place. So it is unfair. And that's the reality, what is shown in the show. Yes.
So in your opinion, does the Southeast Asian media portray an accurate representation of the LGBT community?
No, not yet. I mean, I think we are starting to get into spaces where we try and see them not as a funny character, not as a butt of jokes, not as the fringe element that everybody makes fun of. How if you see commercial films right from the 60s and the 70s, there was this effeminate person that was the butt of all jokes, and was the funny one that everybody treated as like a punching bag, or basically LGBT characters before and still now are the punchline of a joke. And I think that's starting to, not yet, I think we have a long way to go, but it is sort of with Bombay Begums, and we had this show directed by Neeraj Khaiwan called Ankahi, I think. I forget the name, where, we are starting to see them as human beings with their own, worldview and life, and just human beings like us who have, regular lives and similar thoughts and emotions and love and all of that. So I still think we have a long way to go.
That also reminds me, I saw a show, I think it was on Netflix, maybe it was Amazon, and it was about a gay like love interest, Cobalt Blue. And even that, I think it got very mixed reviews. Like some reviews for the show were amazing, and some reviews, you could tell the people that were reviewing them were not really ready to watch something like this in mainstream media yet. And I found that quite interesting as well, because, I mean, obviously that was men, but the whole homosexuality concept still seems to be a bit of a shock to the system for some people.
Yes. For a lot of people, actually, I think we were sort of going towards, we were progressing, and then suddenly there's some change in the political conversation, and we sort of are, it's like 2 steps ahead, 1 step back, sort of a situation at times. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's improving though? Like I mean, living in New Zealand, I guess I'm very far removed from India and all of that, but I've noticed on Amazon and Netflix and all of those streaming platforms, there seem to be like more and more of these, I guess, abstract type of shows coming on these streaming platforms, which make me think India is slowly progressing. Is that true?
Yes, yes. I think we are in a much better position than we were before. These conversations were not being had before. And I mean, if you pick up, I think every second or third show has a LGBTQI character. And it's now almost like if you want to be part of the group, you have to include them. And so it's, yes, it's getting much better. It is.
That's good to hear. So now on to you. Most of your pieces of work have been nominated for international film festivals, which is amazing. How does it feel to be the face of the South Asian community in such crowds?
I don't know if I want to take the responsibility of being the face, although I have at times felt that I've represented the South Asian community in international film festivals, especially when I had gone with my first film and I was playing the lead character and was part of the Berlinale International Film Festival. And just a few years ago, the Delhi gang rape incident had happened, if you remember the famous thing. And I felt like all the questions that were directed to me were about, so how does it feel to be a woman in India? Like, do you feel safe? Do you feel, I mean, it was confusing for me because I don't want that to be the image of India when I go outside of India, but it's also the truth, you know, like, it is sort of the reality that it's unsafe for women in India. But it's what I'm trying to say is that it's a little bit confusing because sometimes I feel like I represent the goods, but I also represent the not so great things about the country. But in cinema, I think there was a boom at some point, and then we still have not managed to become like the next Iran or next Korea, where, you know, you have great films coming to international film festivals. But personally, it opened me up as a person to then, you know, I got exposed to international films. I met a lot of filmmakers, and that opened doors for me to work in Europe. So for me personally, it was a learning experience. I don't know if I still carry the whole burden of Indian cinema yet, and I hope it gets better. But it's been good in its completeness. Yeah.
So how did you get your break into the European film industry?
I did this. So I used to do, I don't know if you've heard of the Film Institute of India, which is based in Pune. It's one of, I think it's a gem. It's one of the best film institutes in the world. I think it's rated in the top 10. And I was new as an actor. I had no training. So I was like, okay, I want to work and I want to act. So I started approaching these guys, and they started casting me as a non-student, because I was not the student in the Film Institute. And I started doing their playbacks and their, you know, student films. And one of the persons from the Film Institute, a senior, was making a feature film, for which he thought I was the correct casting. And I did this film called Lajwanti that premiered at Berlin. And then that got me a lot of recognition. And then I ended up being selected for Berlinale Talents, which is like from all over the world. You have 250 people who get selected for this. And that made me, that helped me connect with filmmakers outside.
Oh,
And
that's really
so
cool.
that's
So going back to I guess the beginning of your acting career, how did you first get into acting, and how did you find that that was your passion and that's what you wanted to do?
I eloped from home. That's the story. I actually just ran away. I come from a very conservative, like you said earlier, family, and in my family, they would say things like, "Oh, but that happens in films." Like it was like another planet where things happen, and that was not part of the reality. But I, as a young child, was always so I am I have masters in English literature, so I was always into like novels and fiction, and I loved films. I It just connected with me as a child, and I think I always had this feeling that whenever I saw films, Indian films, and mostly Bollywood, I never saw someone like me, like someone who looked like me or had or they were all just they looked like they were from Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't. Maybe Smita Patil, who was this dusky brown, very Indian looking, real looking person. And I still connected with the stories. I connected with the emotions, and I'm a very emotional person. And I was like, okay, that's where I want to be. And
Mhm.
everybody in my family thought I was crazy. It's just a phase, and it's just this. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going. And I landed in Bombay, knowing no one, and just started. I enrolled in an acting institute. I was like, okay, that'd be a good place to start, and then put up all my savings in that acting course. And then it was one step at a time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it started. And
Yeah.
I always loved storytelling. So that was the passion. I mean, there are still days I'm like, why am I doing this? Do I really want to continue doing this? And then I'm like, and then I keep coming back to it. So I guess it is it's like a love affair that's sometimes difficult, but I mean, on its whole, it's great.
Yeah. And also your point that you mentioned before about you not seeing anyone like yourself on screen. I remember many years ago reading some article about Bipasha Basu because she was known as being a bit darker than most people in Bollywood back then. And I'd also read somewhere that quite often in movies her skin actually gets lightened to make her look
Yeah.
lighter. And
Yeah.
I don't know, India seems to have some crazy obsession with making everyone literally look, fair and lovely. And it's just, but you're Indian. Why not? You're acting for the Indian
Yeah.
cinema. You're not even acting for a foreign cinema. And it's, yeah. And I think
I mean,
even with
I
that,
want to add to that. One of the things that happened when I started working in international films was for the first time, a girl from India that grew up feeling something is wrong with my skin color, like something like but I didn't choose this. I was so confused about, I felt so unlovable about how my skin color was, and that I felt like it was my fault, but it really wasn't because my
mm,
parents got together and this came out. I didn't have to choose this.
yeah,
It was only when I started traveling abroad and I started working in films outside that I realized, well, I'm an Indian. This is how my tribe looks. It's like you're meeting an African and then expecting them to be really light skinned. It's weird.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
African. That's how they look. Or a Korean, expecting them to have European features. It's just so confusing and misaligned. And I think that changed. And I think hearing from people outside of India saying, oh, I love your skin color, oh, how beautiful you are, healed me. It did heal
mm,
me because you don't get that. I have this little feeling that every time I land from international shores to Mumbai immigration, there's a part in me subconsciously that starts feeling unbeautiful. It's funny. And I'm like, is it why? Because I was just feeling beautiful like
mm,
10 hours ago before I took this flight at the Paris airport. Why am I feeling? And I think it's just something about the energy that changes in Indian eyes. And it's been, there's a lot of sociological factor to it. We still have the British hangover, the colonial hangover of, the rich people are fair. And the second thing is caste. the higher caste people are generally lighter skinned. So it's
Yeah.
considered more valuable, it's considered more respectable, and it's so inculcated in our subconscious that that's why representation matters. That's why we have to stop lightening people who are, darker skinned, and just start showing people and make them look more engaging and connecting. Yeah.
That's very true. Like, I remember even like a few interviews that have been done with Bipasha Basu and Priyanka Chopra, and they all talk about the same thing, portraying what they really look like rather than being photoshopped and made lighter and things like that. And me on the flip side, like, I'm naturally quite fair, even though I'm fully Indian, which again is just genetics because my parents are fair. And I have encountered so many times when I go to India, people in my own family say to me, "You're so lucky you're light skinned." And I'm just like, "Oh, I was just born this color. I don't think twice about it." And it's interesting how people put that importance on something you actually can't control at all.
And you're so young and impressionable, and you're like, something is wrong with me. You're not emotionally mature to even realize that, no, that's how you look at me. There's nothing wrong with me. So it is. I think it should really become a conversation. Center of conversation. This talk with skin color and our obsession with it.
Yeah, and it has to be normalized that this is how we look, and that's it. No fake enhancements. So please tell us a little bit about your upcoming projects in the next few years.
Recently I have two shows. One for Amazon, which is for Tiger Baby and Excel, which is Farhan Akhtar and Zoya Akhtar's company. They are. So I've done a show for them called The Hard, which should come out in the second half of this year. And then I've done another show, which is a little bit from the same place of Gully Boy, but in a series, Khalbali Records, which should also come out sometime in the second half. And then I've co-written a Spanish feature, which is called La Última Víctima. The English word is the last victim. Which I will act in, and it's a Spanish feature film, and it will be shot all in Spain. And then I go ahead with that. That should start prep this year, and then we shoot next year, and we plan to sort of, that's the wishful thinking, premiere it in Cannes, and I feel like I want to manifest that. So yeah.
Nice. So do you personally enjoy the projects you do in India more, or the projects that you do in Europe?
Depending on who I'm working with. What I really enjoy about the European projects is really organized. They're organized. You know everything way before what's going to be shot, what's going to happen, how you're going to travel, where you're going to stay. Everything is communicated. In India, it's almost like, let's figure it out that day. Chaos. And so that's the only part. But I'm an Indian, so I really connect more on the Indian set with my co-actors and my crew. Although I do connect with the crew here as well. But yeah.
Are there many Indian actors that are pursuing careers in acting and the film and music industry in Europe?
With Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and all these shows now, because they want people to subscribe all over the world, they need to tell stories that have people from all around the world. That's why when you have something like Money Heist, you have an Indian character, you have a Japanese character, or Sense8. So I think, it is a really good time for actors to work around the world, Indian actors. And I think there is a demand because India is a big, big market for subscriptions. So, yes.
And it's also like recently how Disney has brought out Miss Marvel. You would never think a company like Disney would have made a full-on Indian series like this, but you can tell that they're doing it because they want to capture that Indian audience and that whole global audience.
Or Bridgerton. Bridgerton, the fact that for the next season they chose an Indian centered house is because they knew that Bridgerton was really popular in India. And I think that's the same thing that's happening with the what was that game show, Squid Game, you
Oh
know,
yes,
or
there's the
Money
one
Heist.
Pakistani guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and Money Heist. I think their future seasons are going to have more characters from these countries, Pakistan, India, because they see how famous and popular they are.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did COVID-19 impact your work? Because obviously, you know, the world went in standstill and many jobs can't just be done from home. And
Yeah.
how did you keep your mental sanity in peace during those trying times?
I mean, in the beginning, we were just like having fun, and we were also as an actor, you're used to not working for months, and then you're used to working a lot, and just like it's more concentrated and sporadic. There is no consistency of a job, so you can sit. So for the first few months, I thought that I'm used to this. I'll have my routine. I'll walk around, and I got stranded in Berlin for 10 months. I was supposed to be in
Oh,
Berlin
wow.
for 2 months, and then the world shut down. And I loved the city, so that was all right. But I think subconsciously, the whole talk, what are we going to start? No, it's not going to start. You know, this uncertainty of what's happening next sort of did catch up a year and a half later, where you're like, I don't understand, when will this end? And I still feel the repercussions of my what do you call it, of my mental health with it, right? I feel like we still aren't over it. I think it did leave quite a profound impact on our mental health, and I think it's going to take a few years for us to fully recover from it. You know, it's like a ripple effect that still continues. So I'm sane. I feel fine, but I do know that I did have a bit of anxiety. I did have, you know, I did have anxiety. I think my first acknowledgement of anxiety, you know, people would say, oh, you know, I feel anxious. I have anxiety attack. And like, how does that feel? Because I'm generally a melancholic person. I don't get anxious. I'm like, I tend to think of, I call myself a cheerful pessimist because I think of the worst already and then work backwards. So I'm like, I'm used to this. But I did have my first anxiety moments, and I was like, okay, this is how it feels to have anxiety. But I think
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I kind of get you there. Like even here in New Zealand, like we thought, oh, yep, things are going back to normal. And then a few months ago, actually, even right now, our COVID numbers are higher than they have ever been in the entire pandemic. Except now the only difference is that majority of people are vaccinated. So you kind of have that
Yeah.
little bit of peace of mind. But it's that
Yeah.
whole thing where like you don't know how much to plan into the future in case the country goes back into lockdown again one day or there's more restrictions. And but I guess, you know, like in your industry it's even harder because you physically have to go on set to do
Oh
your
yeah.
job, and you get told a
Yes.
certain date and then you don't know what happens in the world around you and it all
Oh
gets
yeah.
pushed aside.
Also, because in such situations of pandemic and war, art becomes the last priority for any government, for policies. You know, the first thing that, so artists are like, I remember reading a survey that they did that in the pandemic, which professions are the most important and should be funded and which weren't. And artists were the top that shouldn't be funded. Like, why do we need art? We need to survive. So, you know, we are the first people where like, the economy doesn't need to focus on them. We need to focus on the doctors, which is important, and you know, people who do the daily wage workers. But yeah, so artists are the last people think of when there's a war and a pandemic.
And how are things now in both Europe and India, like in the acting industry? Are things relatively back to normal now?
Oh yes, they are. I think people are just in a hurry to. There were projects that stopped in you know, in the middle when the pandemic hit. So now people fear that there might be another wave. So let's finish everything. And a lot of us were eager to get back to work. Although I did have work in the middle of the pandemic, so I was lucky enough. but there is this urgency to finish things in case there is another wave, and because we're still in a way in the middle of a pandemic, we're not really out of it completely. And then this fear that there might be a market crash, you know. So it was like, before I lose out the funding on my next project, let me just get the money, shoot it, and move on.
Yep.
And I think that the demand to feed Netflix, you know, Netflix wants to make a lot of shows in case there's another wave. People want to sit and be watching new shows, so they want to keep shooting. So in a way, it's a really good time because of Netflix and Amazon and all the OTTs, because there's so much more demand. And it's a great time to be an actor, because really, as an actor today, you have more work than you ever had. So that's a really good thing. And it's more democratic now, because as an actor, you can say, I don't have the dates. You need to pay me more money for me to come on board. So there are good things, but there's also this fear that it all could stop at any time. So it's still uncertain. We are still feeling the ripple effect. It's not completely back to safety and normal and regular certainty. Yeah,
it will definitely take time. What's your message to our listeners, like anyone that might be thinking of getting into the acting industry, but might be, you know, sitting on the fence, not knowing what's out there, or someone that wants to give acting a go? What's your message to them?
I think from a human being's perspective, not the business aspect of it, but the craft aspect of it and the storytelling aspect of it. If you want to be an actor, you have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to be empathic, because you need to feel what the character feels at that moment. So you have to, and that doesn't just start with characters, that starts with people around you, and it starts with your loved ones. You know, you have to develop empathy and kindness and be emotionally intelligent, socially intelligent. You know, I would say work on being emotionally intelligent. Put yourself in emotional situations that would be uncomfortable. Otherwise, you would be like, I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to be in denial, no, get into it, because that gives you richness of emotions that would then help you be a better actor, to an honest and truthful actor. From the business aspect, I would say that, and no one told me this, but I wish someone had, get yourself a mentor. Get yourself a mentor that is, you know, that you first really respect or admire how they live their life and how they are as human beings. And second, so that they tell you that, you know, people say you should always have another job that gives you financial security. Yes, that's great. But a mentor would tell you how to balance both. Like if you do have a job and an emotional, financial independence is what you're seeking, then they will tell you, but they'll also tell you when to seek out the craft. I think just getting a good mentor in your life and a very strong support system of family and loved ones, or just a great friend who can call out your bullshit when you are bullshitting yourself. Yeah, just and a very healthy growth mindset, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you can't be a victim, because you're going to get rejected. People are going to judge you. You're going to be reviewed. And if you don't really like yourself already, and you don't have this growth mindset of, you know I can be bad, but I can get better. Like this growth mindset and not victim mindset will really help as an actor, because that's when you go downhill, because you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged for your nose, your mouth, your skin color, your acting, your hair. You're just going to be judged. So you need to really love yourself and have a rock solid self-esteem to face that, because we're all flawed, and what we think is our shortcoming probably is our USP, is our strongest point. No one told me that, but I understand that now.
Do you think it's easier to get into the acting industry in India or in Europe, like from your experience?
Europe, because in India, there are still not, the system is not organized yet. It's still very family mafioso business, right?
The nepotism issues.
Yes, and I know everybody tries to, sugar coated. But you still only get into it if you are a good actor. You could be someone's son and daughter, but you'll only get into it if you're a good actor and thrive. No, not really. I mean, just to get I think good acting in the end, being on set, is confidence. And a child that is from the film industry is already confident enough, already has an entourage that makes their hair look good, their skin look good. The lighting will be done so that they look beautiful. They already have a very comfortable space from which, and a safe space from which they work. For someone who's an outsider, it is not a safe space. I mean, I don't think it's still a safe space, maybe now for Kartik Aaryan, because he can be replaced by someone who's a bigger star but has a family connection, right? I mean, now maybe he is in a safe space, but I don't think it's ever a safe space for an outsider unless they become like really bankable. They can prove their mettle, and that takes 10 years, 11 years. So, but in Europe, you want to become an actor, you do theater, you go to an agent, you say, this is my show reel. And they're like, I think I like you. I believe in you. I'm going to push for you. That doesn't happen. You don't have agency system in India yet. You only get an agent when you're already, I would say, Kartik Aaryan, It's very difficult for a young, new actor to find an agent in India. They will not select you. But in Europe, that's the first thing you get. That's the first step. There's already someone who's vouching for you. So I would say Europe.
Yeah, I think it's being more and more covered, how all these actors get in just because their parents are actors and they've got all the generations. But I think the first step is the awareness, which is what's happening now, right? So like they talk about nepotism and all of that. And now the next action will be to act upon that nepotism and make sure that everyone has an equal playing ground.
Disrupting a status quo disrupts a lot of people who are comfortable in that status quo, right? So that's why now, initially it was anger towards, these nepotistic kids, blah, blah, blah. Now I almost see the conversation change and upgrade to, but they are from a family, but they also try hard. So there is like an apology that's happening towards it. And I'm like, that's the whole game. That's what they want. That yes, it's a problem, but they also work hard. And of course they work hard. You have to work hard. There are 200 people on a set who are, who want you to do a great job. But I think with the conversation still has to be like how unfair this is and how this has to be changed. But so that's the thing.
This was amazing, Sanghmitra. Before we wrap up, can we please get you to spell out your social media handles for our listeners, please? Thank you.
You can follow me on Instagram on Sanghmitra Hitaishi, which is just my name. On Twitter as well, Sanghmitra Hitaishi. I think I just have a very peculiar name. Just get the spelling right. It's SANGHMITRA HITAISHI and @ So just that, and that's it.
Amazing. So for our listeners, this was Sanghmitra Hitaishi, who is joining us from Europe at the moment. And for those of you who heard us for the first time, we really hope that you've got some very relevant points to take away from Sanghmitra's journey, from the chat we've had with us. It was a varied conversation. And those of you who've been hearing us for a while, I really hope that you like the content that we put on the table. And if you've got any thoughts, comments, or feedback, please write to us at coconutchats@gmail.com. We are also available on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as Coconut Chats. Sanghmitra, on that note, thank you once again for joining us. It was amazing speaking with you. Have a great journey ahead in your career. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. And I wish you a really great times ahead. And I will look forward to more stuff from you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. It was lovely chatting with you.
And to our listeners, we'll be back shortly with another conversation. Till then, please stay safe and take care of yourselves. Thank you.